Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's keynote session on COVID-19 has changed everything, a new paradigm for a post-pandemic world. My name is Vivek Gai, and I'm part of the management team at Indegene, and I lead the business unit for enterprise commercial solutions globally. It's really a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Corinne Le Goff. Corinne was recently appointed as the Chief Commercial Officer at Moderna, where she leads global commercial strategy. A company that you are all, I'm sure, familiar with, a company that has become a household name for its technology and specifically its role in helping mankind overcome the pandemic. Prior to Moderna, Corinne was at Amgen till 2020, where she served as SVP and as president of the US business organization. In the past, Corinne has held leadership positions in Roche and also spent earlier career in companies like Sanofi and Pfizer. Corinne serves as the director of CFAO, a trading company that operates in 36 markets in Africa. Dr. Le Goff received a doctorate in pharmacy from René Descartes University in Paris and a master's in business administration from La Sorbonne University and INSEAD. I have been extremely fortunate to work with Corinne and her team over the last 5 years and have immense respect for her focus on innovation while driving business outcomes. Corinne is going to talk to us about how COVID has changed everything and is fundamentally reordering society in dramatic ways. But the crisis moments also have their silver linings. We are experiencing a more flexible and sophisticated use of technology, accelerated adoption of everything digital, better care coordination, and more importantly, COVID-19 has brought a new health reality to many people, accelerating the trend towards health consciousness and self-care. Dr. Le Goff will share her unique perspective on the big picture, the big lessons, and the big solutions for building a learning healthcare system. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, Dr. Le Goff. Corinne, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Vivek. Thank you so much for your kind words, your kind introduction. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you and to be your keynote speaker this morning. Maybe we'll start the presentation with the first slide. So for the last 18 months, COVID-19 has been a daily topic of conversation. Right? And of course, I'm at Moderna, so I'm going to talk to you about COVID-19, but I am not going to delve on the fundamental business changes brought on by COVID-19 because a lot has been said about it. A lot has been said about how the pandemic has propelled the rapid migration to digital technologies in all industries, in all sectors. Theses have been written about the accelerated transformation of the pharmaceutical industry go-to-market model through more digital engagement, through massive restructuring of sales forces. So this is well known. This is even a bit cliche. So now what I want to discuss with you today is how this crisis is literally changing the face of medicine through the sophisticated use of technology. So yes, from my perspective, COVID-19 has changed everything. Next slide. COVID-19 has been nothing short of a global catastrophe. It is an experience that an entire generation, our children, our parents will remember forever, and that none of us would wish to repeat. So over the last year and a half, we experienced a pandemic that has enveloped the entire world and changing it permanently. And I am convinced that there is no chance to snap back to the pre-COVID times, to the old good ways of working, like a rubber band. No chance of that. This disease has excited a horrific human toll. Globally, more people have died from COVID-19 than from all wars in the 21st century put together. In the US alone, the pandemic has become the deadliest disease event in American history, with a death toll surpassing that of the 1918 Spanish flu. This stands today at more than 675,000. Right? So to put things into perspective, this death toll is higher than the number of Americans who were killed in the Second World War, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War, all combined. And if we look beyond these staggering fatality numbers, you have to remember the assault on economies around the world and how severe it has been. The IMF estimates the global COVID costs to be at least $28 trillion in lost output. This cumulative loss relative to the pre-pandemic projected path represents a severe setback to the improvement in average living standards across all countries. And what I am referring to here is the direct impact of COVID, and it is just the tip of the iceberg. The actual magnitude of indirect morbidity and mortality numbers linked to understood yet. I'll give you an example. Another disruption can be traced to the pandemic. It is the rise of obesity, and it is correlated to stay-at-home orders. A new CDC report concludes that the monthly rate of BMI increased almost twice as fast as before in children and teenagers. So you see that the consequences of COVID are far-reaching, and the after effects are likely to be long-lasting. Next slide. So this pandemic is not behind us yet. And we believe, and experts agree, that this virus is here to stay and could follow a seasonal pattern like the flu and surge again in the late fall or early winter. But we need to stare at the fact that pandemics like that are more likely to occur in the future than they have in the past. And the reasons are well known. It's linked to the expansion of global air travel, the accelerating urbanization, the climate crisis, the increased human-animal contacts. And moreover, there are good reasons to believe that a future pandemic could be far worse than COVID-19. Take a look at these charts. On the left-hand side, the infamous R0, a mathematical term that indicates how contagious an infectious disease is. And on the right-hand side, the comparative case fatality rates. Now, it is sobering to consider that the COVID-19 is a comparatively benign pathogen. And clearly, the Delta variant here is highly transmissible. It's twice more transmissible than the original strain. But imagine if it had the infectiousness of measles, for instance, and the case fatality rate of MERS. Hundreds of millions would have died and national economies would have collapsed. So the big lesson is that the pandemic has served as a stress test of all our weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and we need to take action to prevent and preempt threats to our health. And we have to bring about profound changes so that never again is reality and not rhetoric. Next slide, please. And I believe that the lesson has been learned, and the crisis has served as catalyst for positive changes in a few areas, from public health to medicine, of course, and even engineering. So I chose to focus on three profound changes. The first one is the delivery of new care models that I believe are here to stay. Health systems have been overwhelmed by the pandemic and placed under unprecedented stress. They had to find new ways to cope. As social distancing measures were put in place by governments around the world, telemedicine, that was already undergoing rapid growth, has quickly become a key tool for both preliminary COVID screening and for non-urgent care and consultations. This movement toward digitally enabled remote care has been slowly taking shape and gathering momentum. And there is no doubt that we will see higher investments than pre-pandemic level in digital technologies used for customer engagement, for care coordination, enabling a remote workforce via telemedicine. So the adoption of digital technologies by healthcare systems and by individuals has accelerated. Now, data and digital technologies will be also used to better connect care teams and patients, bridging the physical separation between them, and also will be used to unify a system of care which is still very fragmented. Now, along these lines, healthcare providers will embrace the concept of moving information, not moving patients. Now, that's a clever idea, isn't it? Right? It is now so obvious that a patient doesn't need to go to the hospital or to visit a physician's office, where, by the way, he can be exposed to any kinds of pathogens. He doesn't need to do that to receive good care. He can simply stay home with a good internet connection. Home monitoring and secure teleconsultation technology will enable many patients to receive hospital quality care at home. The digitally enabled care model is the future of outpatient services, and it is not inconceivable to imagine a day in the very near future when most of the non-trauma cases could be delivered at the patient's home. The investment community has been quick at identifying this trend, and many digital health disruptors, like Remedy or others, have been funded to provide the modern version of the household that I remember from my childhood. So that's the first change. Next slide, please. The second profound change is about the rapid implementation of new clinical decision support tools. The silver lining of this pandemic is that it has revealed our ingenuity and near limitless capacity for innovation. Again, to cope with the urgency of the pandemic, we have witnessed the creation of partnerships across industries that had never talked to each other before. As an illustration, here are a few examples of the intriguing and extraordinary innovations that have flourished recently. They stemmed from the collaboration of technology partners with the Sheba Medical Center, which is based in Israel. So first example, to facilitate the screening of COVID patients, this small company, Vocalis Health, has created a diagnostic system applying sensitive audio technology, AI and machine learning to detect a vocal indicator for COVID-19, simply by analyzing a patient's breathing and voice. I think that's very clever. Similarly, to detect the presence and the severity of COVID-19, another company, Nanoscent, has created a device using AI sensors to detect and digitize scents. Now, their device is founded on the principle that the proliferation of virus cells in the nose of COVID-19 patients produces a distinctive odor. And the last one, and that's going one step beyond telemedicine, is to have care delivered by robots, personal robotic assistants that enable doctors to monitor patients or administer medicines with zero physical contact. So doctors don't even need to enter the patient's rooms. So I believe that it is through these types of high value generating partnerships between healthcare providers and medical technology companies that we will see enduring investments in digitalization efforts that will help the providers upgrade the organizations, upgrade their levels of services, and that will help them deliver meaningful improvement in clinical outcomes, but also in financial outcomes. You know, today, AI-powered tools are currently being developed and they are used to benchmark insights, to provide clinical decision support, and to optimize workflow. It is even possible that AI could play a role in detecting infectious disease outbreak and preventing them from developing into pandemics. Next slide, please. And the third and last example of profound change that I want to give you, and maybe the one I am the most excited about because it opens the door to new opportunities in preventative care, is the development of new consumer decision support tools. I am talking here about consumers, you notice, not patients. COVID-19 has brought a new health reality to many people, exacerbating the trend towards health consciousness and self-care. So a fun fact, do you know how many health and fitness apps are currently available? I'll give you the answer. It's an enormous number, 97,000. Now, do you know that during the months of lockdown, 90% of smartphone owners have used an health app? This is phenomenal. So increasingly, people use mobile-based tools to manage their wellness and their health, like e-scheduling systems where patients use their phone to book their appointments and to get access to diagnostics and treatments. And we are seeing great improvements in the usability of the tools and in their ability to refine their behavior based on people's preferences. But the next level in consumer decision support tools will be active decision support, like health informatics apps, dashboards for personal health data. Today, most wellness apps focus on nutrition, they focus on physical activities, and they provide very limited customized consultations. In the very near future, predictive wellness coaches may provide continuous advice to help people adopt customized healthy behaviors using lifelong patient data to prevent sickness. So consumers will come to expect this kind of tailored support, and consumer decision support tools will become increasingly important in the future. Next slide, please. The advancement in the development of consumer platform is a far superior way to engage and to involve and empower citizens to improve their own health compared to the traditional patient-provider interaction. And it is central to a preventative medicine paradigm. Why? Why? Because engaging with people who are not sick and who do not present symptoms means that their participation is wholly discretionary. The pandemic calls us to apply leading-edge biological sciences and machine learning technologies in more targeted efforts to keep people healthy. Today, more than 90% of Western countries' resources dedicated to health are in fact spent on providing care to those who are already sick, rather than on maintaining or improving health. Sick care systems, as they might be termed, reward new ways to manage illness rather than innovations that protect, maintain, and improve health. New tools are being developed that will enable individuals to manage their own health by providing them with artificial intelligence-enabled applications to assess their own health status and determine if preemptive medicine interventions may be beneficial to avoid progression through a chronic disease. And the hope is that these novel disease prediction algorithms, with the appropriate medical and data protection, obviously, may allow preventative and affordable interventions against most non-communicable diseases at a global scale. And what's more, early detection will empower people to actively manage and mitigate pre-disease at a time when it may well be reversible. Next slide, please. So preemptive medicine is distinct from today's medicine, whether it is proactive or reactive. Today's proactive medicine entails a high standard of care for a population group or for a care pathway. Providers proactively reach out to patients to ensure that they receive the right package of care. Reactive medicine deals with the treatment or management of all symptomatic conditions and deal with the management of acute exacerbation of chronic diseases. Preventive medicine puts the emphasis on preserving and prolonging health rather than treating or managing sickness. The goal is to anticipate problems before they emerge, to prevent the acute exacerbation of chronic conditions. So for example, regular eye examinations to prevent retinopathy among people with diabetes. These programs are variously described as population health management, chronic disease management, or integrated care. Now, population health management, as the name suggests, tends to focus on measures that apply to the whole of society, like from smoking bans to nutritional guidance. In contrast, the future of preventative medicine is targeted at tightly defined groups or at individuals based on segmentation according to risk and followed by the detection of specific biomarkers. Interventions can then be planned and the cost can be kept low compared to crisis management. So it's not about minimizing illness anymore, but it is about maximizing health potential using detection and intervention tools made possible by leading-edge biological sciences alongside digital technologies and notably, again, the use of artificial intelligence. Next slide. The greatest breakthrough artificial intelligence, AI, has given us is it has shown us that traditional point-of-care medicine is simply not sufficient. It is not proficient enough to capture the complexities of disease, or more importantly, of wellness. It has shown us the deficiencies we have in truly evaluating a patient's overall health and all the parameters that entail the evolution of pathology. What we have learned is that the advancement of understanding must incorporate a holistic view of the patient, which merges all data points over the span of wellness and of disease process to be able to fully understand the progression of pathology and to discover novel biomarkers of disease. So the shift to personalized preventive medicine or personalized health will be achieved through the meaningful interpretation of terabytes of patient-level longitudinal data set containing both phenotypic and panomics data. So what is panomics? Panomics is the integration of increasingly complex omics data that arise from subfields of genomics, that everybody knows what it is, transcriptomics, which is the measurement of mRNA levels, proteomics, quantification of proteins, and metabolomics, the quantification of multiple small molecules like amino acids. And the objective is to increase our understanding of the physiopathology, of the diagnosis and treatment of disease. Now, the future of medicine is one where panomics data are leveraged to create diagnostic tools with greater power and increasingly tailored to each patient's variability. The ultimate goal will be the rapid diagnosis of pre-disease in a personalized approach. So panomic data are generated from patients' tissue and fluid samples and will become increasingly available over the next few years as molecular biology technologies advance. The integration of data from these panomics subfields will require ongoing improvement and standardization of data acquisition. A range of diagnostic, descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytical methodologies should be applied to maximize insight generation and extract as much value as possible from the data. So you can imagine that advanced data mining, the understanding of the associations and trends within health data will allow to build predictive models to identify and predict high-risk patients and to develop early intervention plans to improve health proactively. So with this panomic view, we must extend beyond just point-of-care medicine and incorporate a holistic view of the patient, his diet, daily habits, routines, work habits, living conditions, environment, etc. Next slide, please. So the massive transformation of medicine that I have described in the last few minutes, culminating in the shift from management of sickness to personalized prevention and health security, is anchored on the inevitable digital transformation of healthcare. COVID-19 has merely sped up the timeline and underscored the need. Now, this transformation is not easy. We know what the challenges are: low quality of data, an inability to securely or conveniently access clinical data, low interoperability of systems, and fragmented care systems in place in many countries. COVID-19 has highlighted some of these challenges, but it has also spurred healthcare enterprises to meet these challenges head on as part of a comprehensive response to the pandemic. COVID-19 has been a live experiment of a learning health system at the scale of the globe. What is a learning health system? It is a healthcare system that performs interventions, measures outcomes, and course corrects based on evaluation of outcomes. That's what a learning health system is. And this is exactly what we have seen in the past 18 months. We have witnessed unprecedented collaboration between researchers, clinicians, health systems, governments, manufacturers. We have witnessed unprecedented sharing of data, unprecedented innovation, and unprecedented quality. So this approach of continuous learning and refinement will be vital to our success in combating future outbreaks or other infectious diseases or potential pandemics. And the key is to create a culture that adapts quickly to new data, especially in the face of a novel pathogen, so that we can be better prepared for both typical clinical challenges and for future pandemics. So with this, this crisis, as we all know, has reordered society in dramatic ways. And this global virus has kept us contained in our homes for months, has reoriented our relationship, that transformed the way we live, the way we work, the way we learn, the way we access medicine, and much more. But crisis moments always have their silver lining. So I believe that medicine will be transformed forever and for the better. Thank you very much. And with that, maybe we have time to take a few questions.
Thank you so much, Corinne, for this wonderful articulation of not only the challenges we have faced, but also the opportunity that comes out of these challenges, and sort of shining the spotlight on focusing on the need for this self-learning, intelligent healthcare system that potentially comes out of this. There are, as you can imagine, there's a lot of interest in this topic and a lot of questions coming through. So let me take the first, one. So one question that seems to be around, and you spoke about it, this sort of immense collaboration that is happening between healthcare systems and researchers, etc. But, the question is that, and there are a couple of questions around this, so I'll try and best to paraphrase, so one seems to be, how can government and pharma companies partner to reduce fatality rates in future pandemics? And then also sort of, are there specific public-private partnerships emerging that might help us accelerate, this area? So what are you seeing from your vantage point in this area?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. Yeah, so what I'm seeing clearly is that there is a willingness for governments, institutions, and manufacturers to really work closely together. We at Moderna had an extremely positive and productive collaboration with the NIH. And it is the case around the world. And this has helped tremendously in accelerating the discovery of solutions, right? Not only vaccines. I mean, obviously the mRNA technology has been able to power up the discovery of highly efficient vaccines, right? In less than nine months, we had an approved vaccine, so it's extraordinary. But we've seen this collaboration at every level, right? Now, the first part of your question is, if there is another pandemic, can we limit the rate of fatalities, right? And I think this is really by looking at how we administer health today that we can do this. That's why I really believe that preemption or prevention of chronic diseases can help in the future, right? If we can be more proactive, it will definitely be a key factor to decrease fatality rates. We know that, in all those respiratory diseases, COVID-19 obviously is the most recent example, but the same is true for flu or RSV or other respiratory viruses. People with underlying conditions like obesity, diabetes, so are more susceptible to develop high inflammation states and are more likely to end up in the ICU and be hospitalized, right? And more likely to die. So a better management of those chronic conditions and better preventive measures at the individual level and not at the society level, I think can help in the future.
Thank you, Corinne. You also spoke about the stress test of the healthcare system, that happened as the pandemic unleashed on us. And, so how prepared are the health systems today, a year and a half into the pandemic? Have you seen tangible progress on that front today to tackle with?
Yeah. So what is certain is that health systems have been caught off guard, right? And this has stirred the realization that, they needed to staff up. They needed to have the right resources in place, even, mask, oxygen right now. And most importantly, at the level of countries and governments, they needed to regain their sovereignty in terms of health management. I spend a lot of time discussing with governments around the world, and that's a common point of discussion, that every government now wants to really regain control over health expenditures, preparedness before the next pandemic. And that can be done in many ways, by onshoring production or by other ways, but that's going to be a focus. And if you look at a number of countries now are going through their budget process for the next year, you see a renewed level of investment behind healthcare. So it's great to see.
Thank you. And another question on preventing, this kind of crisis. So the question is that antimicrobial resistance is another kicking time bomb. And so how can society increase preventive efforts in research to tackle this risk and not act once we have a crisis?
Yeah, this has been a topic for a number of years. If you think about infectious diseases, not a lot of people were interested in infectious disease in the past. I think this pandemic has highlighted the need to first review a very long list of infectious pathogens, whether they are viruses or not. And the list is very long, right? And I think you're going to see more investments in research to tackle those new pathogens, right? It's antibiotics is one arm, but there are others, right? Preventative measures as well. It is clear that it's what we have experienced over the last 18 months with stay-at-home orders, mask mandates, and so on, has decreased the common colds that we see every year. So obviously, good health practices has an impact, right? Even if we don't think about therapeutic interventions. And then, amplifying the level of research behind the discovery of new therapeutic tools against new bacteria, resisting bacteria against new viruses is essential. And you will see a shift in that direction.
Thank you. Another question specifically on clinical trials. Obviously, the pandemic has caused a significant disruption of clinical trials as patients have been missing hospital visits, and even the healthcare systems and the sites are overwhelmed with the care for COVID-19 patients. So are you seeing more solutions emerge to ensure continuity of clinical trials if, these kind of unprecedented situations emerge?
Yes, that's a very good point. I mean, one of the key aspects that we're seeing is this remote monitoring of patients, and we're seeing more investment in the area of remote clinical trials as well. So everything that have been put in place for the management of patients remotely, telemedicine, and so on, can be very easily used in the setup of clinical trials moving forward. We're going in that direction. I think that will facilitate the onboarding of patients in trials. And it will facilitate the follow-up and the case reviews. So yes, that's the future for sure.
Right. And do you also see sort of changes in the regulatory framework as and how how the so two parts to it. One is whether the regulatory bodies themselves are relooking at their own sort of demands for how they solve this, but also how the interaction between pharma biotech companies happens with the regulatory bodies in terms of interchange of data, digitization on that side. So what are you seeing there?
So it's clear that this pandemic has put a lot of pressure on regulators, right? Now, around the world, they come up with emergency use authorization, right? All countries put in place those emergency use authorization. So they were able to review data on a continuous basis. We are producing the data, they were reviewing at the same time. That's new, right? They've done this not only for vaccines, they've done this also for antibodies, and the therapeutics for the treatment of the COVID disease. I certainly hope that this mechanism will stay for the future, right? Because that allowed, vaccines and the right treatment armamentarium to be approved, administered to patients very, very quickly. And we need this across many therapeutic areas. We need this in cancer. We need this in those critical moments. So I hope this remains a common practice because I think it's very fruitful. And then obviously there's a commitment to continue bringing more data. I mean, the use of real-world evidence data is essential to constantly monitor the effectiveness and safety of products, right? So I do believe that we have turned a corner here, and we will engage decisively on that path. Now, I have to say, the regulators are also tired through this process, right? Those 18 months have been exhausting for everybody, right? So they're going to have to resource appropriately to be able to continue and not switch back, as I said earlier, or snap back to the old ways. But through digitization of the relationship manufacturer regulator, I think we can get there.
Thank you. There's a question on supply chain, and I'm hoping that doesn't have to do with toilet paper and paper towels, but it focuses on the supply chain dependency that pharma and biotech companies have on multiple nations for raw materials. And so, what are you seeing? How is the industry solving for some of those types of challenges when a disruption like this happens?
Yes, and as I was referring to this when I was talking of governments now considering whether they have lost or not their sovereignty in terms of healthcare, because those dependencies are very broad and far-reaching, right? And allowing for onshoring of productions of those raw materials, I think, is essential for the future. A number of governments are looking into this. In those types of pandemics, the vaccine manufacturers have benefited from, at least from the US government, from derated materials. Right? What does it mean is that the priority were given to us, right? So suppliers were, prioritizing vaccine manufacturers before they prioritized other manufacturers, and supplying us with vials, with, you can imagine, all the essential supplies. Now, this has all issues as well, right? Because as the priority was put on vaccine production, the production of anti-cancer products or other, products were put on the back burner. This has issues as well, right? So we need to come, of course, hopefully we'll not have to deal with pandemics all the time, but we need to find a better way to ensure that the continuity of care and being able to raise level of supplies in times of pandemics.
Thank you. Pivoting a little bit, Corinne, is, obviously with the pandemic, and you spoke about some of these trends, that also there have been changes in how patients and consumers are interacting with healthcare professionals. And there have been profound changes there. Now, do you get a sense, and this may not today be, something that is right here now today focus for Moderna, but for the pharmaceutical industry overall, obviously there needs to be a fundamental rethink of their commercial model. And so do you see this getting sufficiently recognized and, sort of companies preparing to meet their customers in this new reality?
So is it recognized? I'm not sure it's equally recognized by all, but I am certain that the way people will interact with their healthcare providers has changed forever. Right? We experienced, all of us, that we were receiving good care remotely. So why, wait in a patient waiting room for an hour before being seen by a physician that will take 10 minutes to do your checkup? It makes no sense, right? So more and more as we develop the quality of remote diagnostics, I think more and more people will feel comfortable with that state, right? And then maybe they go see their physician once a year, right? But I do believe that most of treatments can be done at home, right? Now, this new reality, is this understood widely? I'm not sure, because obviously it has profound impact on how health systems are set up, how individual providers are set up as well. It has generated a lot of savings as well, right? If you talk to payers, they'll tell you that, of course, the vast generalization of telemedicine has a massive positive impact for them, right? So I think that we will adapt to this new situation in times, and that means that, we're gonna need to meet people where they are, which is in their homes, and meet providers where they prefer to be met, right? That's the new shift, new paradigm shift in many companies' operating models.
So are you, obviously, as you rightly said, that now patients are suddenly exposed to a new reality, and there is almost been a new expectation set. But having said that, how do we ensure that, that the pendulum doesn't, shift too far in the other side, meaning that there are patients, with life-threatening conditions, and how do we ensure that they get back into, the office to seek the diagnostic testing or treatment needed? So, yeah, go ahead.
So that's very important because, and I think that's what the healthcare systems have realized, that they need to monitor their patients, right? They need to bring them back. They need to have an ongoing conversation with them. That's why I believe that the personalized engagement with patients is essential, right? If you have cancer and you need to go for your chemotherapy and you're afraid of going to the hospital, you have to be able to tell this to your practitioner. And there are ways of not only reassuring people, but making sure that when they have to come to hospital for an intervention, they are in a safe environment. That's where people need to be reassured. Right? At the beginning of the pandemic, hospitals were so overwhelmed that all the wards were taken for COVID management, right? So you were very likely, if you're going to go to a hospital, to meet with COVID patients as well. So the fear was understandable. I think that today we're in a different situation, right? We have better ways of separating out the treatment of infectious diseases and the ongoing care of patients. And I believe that it is through a personalized relationship that we can make healthcare much more efficient with close monitoring of people.
Thank you, Corinne. All good things, I guess, this session also must come to some sort of a conclusion. But any final comments from you? I mean, there's so many questions, but we are also being alerted that now we are about maybe a minute and a half or so into the closure. So any final comments before I, just conclude the session?
Maybe I'd like to, just a couple of days ago, we celebrated Gratitude Day. And I've been immersed in the management of COVID now, 7 days a week, 24/7, right? It's very, very intense. I want to thank, all of the healthcare providers, all of the people, all of my colleagues, all the people that have deployed so much energy around the world. I mean, immense gratitude for all the work that has been accomplished. This is extraordinary.
Thank you, Corinne. I mean, I don't think I want to add anything to that note, except to say that, thank you for the role that Moderna is playing in helping us get over this pandemic. But thank you for valuable insights. There's a lot to think about. But it's also heartening to see that a lot of progress is being made. It may not be evident to us in the day-to-day, things that we see, but clearly a lot going on, behind the scenes. So hopefully the world will be a better place on the other side. Thank you so much, Corinne. Wonderful session, and I'm sure the audience, enjoyed it.
Thank you. Very much appreciated.